Whoop. That's a better one.
Okay.
Brought me here to talk about discipleship, not to clap. My name's Dave Johnson. I'm married. We have 3 children, 2 girls and a boy whom we adopted just this last year. When I first got interviewed to be the senior pastor of this church, they said, Pastor Dave, what would your vision be for this church? And I looked at them in all honesty and said, I have no idea. I started down this path of asking Scripture, what do you require of the church, God? I really just came out with one thing that Jesus asked for the church, and that's simply to make disciples. If you make disciples, then you will always get the church. But if you build the church, you might not get disciples. You might just get people sitting in a building. Part of the problem that we had early on was we loaded people up with some Bible verses and we sent them on their way and we said, go do ministry now. And they crashed and burned pretty quickly. And so we realized that in our discipleship process, they actually need to practice this stuff. One of the things that we'll do with these people is we'll say, okay, 6 months in, we want you to start your own group. And you need to have your own people identified that you are putting this stuff into practice with. They'll take what they're learning in our group and they'll go immediately apply it to their friends. Because we realize that a disciple is not somebody who just comes and sits and listens, but a disciple is somebody who makes disciples. I think at the church, so often we get the come follow, we get the transform, but the fishers of men thing, not as much. And discipleship really pushes that. And so what I found was I needed to go get discipled in a way that was reproducible. So I called a friend and said, I know you're doing this and I want it too. Would you disciple me? And so I had to sort of humble myself and say, I don't know all the answers. I need to be discipled and I need to learn what you know and I need to live this way. I would encourage you that as you go through this process, here's what you're going to see. You're going to start seeing people do ministry. You're going to start seeing what the Bible actually says is the priesthood of all believers, and people realizing that they have just as much spiritual authority and power to do ministry as you do. And there's so much that's given the church just a bad taste in the mouths of our nation. But what about people who truly look and sound like Jesus? What about people who are truly transformed? And so when you start having those people in your church, then you start seeing a greater level of ministry. And people start having these passions that aren't necessarily your passions, but they're birthed out of your passion to make disciples. And I think that is so key because they're equipped now for ministry. They're equipped to do all that Jesus is calling them to do. So that's what we do. It's slow at times, but it's immensely powerful. And what you'll do in your church is this huge infusion of mission.